Hello everyone, it's my great honor to share my lesson study with all of you. I'm Wang from Sichuan Normal University, and the title of my lesson study is Improving High School English Reading Instruction Through Situational Teaching. And there are mainly 5 parts of my lesson study. Firstly, the introduction. The Compulsory Education English Curricular Standards 2022 edition proposes the new concept of practicing the English learning activity view and focusing on improving students' ability to use the language. It points out that teachers should design English learning activities that are comprehensive, relevant, and practical, enabling students to acquire, interpret, and evaluate the meaning of texts through a series of activities that integrate language, culture, and thinking. And based on this background, I listed these research questions. Under the new curricular concept, this lesson study aims to answer these 4 questions. Firstly, how can teachers extract the thematic meaning based on the text? And how to create a real situation around the thematic meaning, and how to innovate the use of textbooks, how to design teaching activities in combination with the activity-based approach to English learning. And in this lesson study, we will answer all these research questions. And firstly, as for the material analysis, this lesson is the second class of Unit 1, A New Start, in the Senior High School Compulsory Volume 1. The content of this class is based on the theme of the unit, A New Start, and is adapted from the Story in Understanding Ideas section of the textbooks. It presents a situation where Meng Hao is filled with complex emotions on his first day of the senior high school. And this article is in the form of a diary. It shows what Meng Hao saw and heard before entering the school, in school, and after leaving school, in chronological order, which well reflects the changes in Meng Hao's emotions. However, the text in the form of a diary, which is easy to be overlooked and may lead students to focus too much on Meng Hao's experiences rather than his emotional changes. So based on the characteristic of the text being a diary, we adapted the textbook and created a situation of play the emoji game while reading a true diary, just like this picture, and which can present the text in the form of a diary flipbook. And then we made the 3 trial teaching of this lesson study to answer the research questions. So this is our first trial teaching. In this trial teaching, the thematic meaning extracted from the text was how do you feel on the first day of a senior high? And the teaching design is as follows. In the introduction part, the teacher introduced the topic with a video showing the complex emotions of the main characters in the movie Inside Out. The teacher guided the students to observe the characters' emotions in the video and relate them to their own complex emotions on the first day. This can stimulate the students' interest in learning and understanding. And next, the teacher presented the situation picture provided in the textbooks. And then, in the reading process, the students skimmed the text to find the text type, the main idea of the text, and the main structure. And then through the guidance on quick browsing and skimming strategies, the teacher guided the students to grasp the main idea and the framework of the text. And then the students can learn this plot diagram tool and learned to use the plot diagram to sort out the text framework and the logic, with the teacher guiding the students to complete the mind map independently. And then the students will read the passage carefully and complete the task 4 and task 3 in the textbook and drew the plot diagram in turn. And then in the post-reading part, the teacher presented a complete plot diagram combined with Wang Hao's experiences and feelings, and asked the students to retell Wang Hao's first day based on this plot diagram. And then, by having the students present in the form of a speech, their oral ability can be improved. And then the teacher will guide the students to go beyond the text, relate it to their own actual situation, and later, in connection with the current hot topic of the Olympic Games. The teacher showed 3 Olympic champions, Huang Yuting, Pan Zhangle, and Xie Yu, who won their first medals in their lives and inspired the students to have the Olympic spirit of higher, faster, stronger in the new stage of high school, with a positive attitude and not afraid of difficulties. And after this trial teaching, we listed some post-class reflections just as follows. Firstly, the teaching activities lacked hierarchy and coherence, and the learning and understanding of the text was superficial. The thematic meaning was not accurately extracted, and the focus of the classroom teaching was not grasped. The teaching content was also too much, and the teaching activities were designed too completed, taking too much time. And then, based on all these questions and problems and the first trial teaching, we did the second trial teaching just as follows, and there are some positive changes in the classroom. Firstly, in this trial teaching, the thematic meaning of this class is clearer. We refined the thematic meaning of the text and clarified the theme as what can we do to face the complicated feelings on the first day at senior high. And our goals are clearer, the steps are closely connected, and the tasks are clearer. And now let's just go into the second trial teaching and see. And in the introduction part, we just combined with the first situation picture in the text and the last paragraph of the article. We let the students predict the content of the story to stimulate their interest in learning. And then, in the reading process, we used the timeline to guide the students to sort out the development of Wang Hao's story, which can highlight the changes in time. And with time as the clue, combined with the different guiding questions, we also guide the students to independently sort out Wang Hao's experiences and feelings in the text, so that students can feel the emotional changes more clearly. And then in the post-reading part, in this part, we provided the students with the plot diagram tool to let them draw the plot diagram independently based on the timeline and Wang Hao's feelings and experiences. And at the same time, the post-reading exercises changed from retelling Wang Hao's story to retelling how did Wang Hao regain confidence. And compared with the first version, the difficulty of retelling has increased, and the hierarchy has been reflected, and students will pay more attention to the emotional changes of Wang Hao. And then after the second trial teaching, we also did the post-class reflection and we found these problems. Firstly, the design of the introduction part may not be suitable for the development of the story in the article, and the time allocation in teaching is not reasonable enough, and the post-reading exercises cannot deepen the students' understanding of the semantic meaning. And then the conclusion of the class is still rigid. Although we have changed the 3 champions into 1 champion, that is Huang Yuting, but the conclusion of the class is still rigid. And then based on these 2 trial teaching and the problems we have found, we did the 3rd trial teaching and to solve all these problems. And now let's just go into the 3rd trial teaching. And in this part, the class still revolves around the theme. What can we do to face the complicated feelings on the first day at senior high for learning construction and meaning exploration? However, compared with the previous two versions, this version seizes the characteristics of the text for adaptation, and we used the activity-based approach to English learning to run through the situational teaching method for teaching. So firstly, we just seizes the identity of the students as the first-year high school students and the first unit of high school for teaching. We used the form of emoji making to focus on the students themselves and let them share their emotions on the first day of senior high. And then we created the situation of reading the diary. We seized the type of the article of being a diary, and we adapted the text into a diary. In the situation, we, the teacher as a leader, just led the students to actively read the diary together, reflecting the student-centered concept. And next, in the applying and practicing part, the teacher transformed the traditional reading and answering questions in the reading practice in an interesting emoji game. This can stimulate the students' initiative through the 4 steps of read, draw, speak, and say. And on each page of the diary, the teacher also provided guiding questions for the students, which can provide a scaffolding for the students' independent reading. And this can also guide the students to find the experiences as the basis and feel the emotional changes in the form of drawing emojis. And finally, in this transferring and creating part, the teacher combined the output of the students' emoji making before the class and the output of the emoji game in the class. The students can think about and explore the thematic meaning. What can we do to face the complicated feelings on the first day at senior high further by themselves? And after the third trial teaching, we also did the post-class reflection, and we get these 3 conclusions of the third trial teaching. Firstly, the design of the teaching activities just highlights hierarchy, relevance, and practicability. And also, we focus on the language use and knowledge construction in the real situations. And thirdly, the explorations of the thematic meaning is in-depth and implemented in the student's exploration. And after all these 3 trial teaching, we also give the following discussion result. And we realized the importance of the activity-based approach to English learning and the importance of situational teaching. And we give the following discussion result. Firstly, we need to focus on the collaborative text interpretation and the semantic meaning extraction. The text interpretation is the starting point of all the teaching activities. It is of great significance and help for the teachers to grasp the teaching materials, use the teaching materials well, and improve the effectiveness of classroom teaching. And when interpreting the text individually, I just extracted the superficial meaning of the text as recording and sharing one's own experiences. And the deeper meaning is to cultivate a positive attitude to adapt to the new environment. But based on the cooperative text interpretation, the multiple trial teaching improvements, we determined the key points and difficulties of this class. And the thematic meaning is to pay attention to the form of the text diary and correctly understand the content of the story, sort out Meng Hao's experiences and feelings on the first day of the senior high through the emoji game, and transfer the expression and emotional experience of one's own experiences. And so in this way, students need to have a positive attitude to adapt to the new environment. And the second point is, while we are teaching, we need to be student-centered to create the interesting situation. Because English courses as a language course cannot achieve ideal teaching results if they only rely on teachers' explanations and homework exercises. It is also necessary to create situation and carry out the real environment teaching to let students conduct situational dialogues and other practical activities. And the process of the situation creation of this class is just as follows. In the first two versions of the teaching design and trial teaching, we only focused on the text for traditional PWP teaching and didn't pay attention to the students' identity, emotions, and interest. But after multiple discussions, and in the third version of the teaching design and trial teaching, we paid attention to the students being freshmen, being full of expectations for the new school life, but at the same time, they felt very worried. And the students being curious about their classmates' experiences and emotions. And after we center on the students, and on this basis, the teacher also says the type of the article being a diary. So we adapted the text into a diary and create a very interesting situation. So in this way, the students can cultivate the positive attitude to adapt to the new environment, and we can also achieve the thematic meaning. And thirdly, that is in-depth understanding of the activity-based approach to English learning and design of teaching activities. In this point, we need to focus that teachers should always have an in-depth understanding of the activity-based approach to English learning. Only in this way can we design the correct and interesting teaching activities. And for example, in my trial teaching, based on the in-depth study of the activity-based approach to English learning and multiple trial teaching improvements, we have realized the transition from mechanically combine the PWP teaching model with the activity-based approach to English learning to practicing the activity-based approach to English learning through situational teaching. So finally, this lesson created a real situation of what can we do to face the complicated feelings on the first day at senior high, to guide the students to conduct multiple sensory language practice activities such as perception, imitation, observation, thinking, communication, and display around the thematic meaning. And after all these discussions, we give the conclusion just as this. This research combines the author's experiences in a provincial competition, focuses on the classroom, and revolves around how to create real situations based on the activity-based approach to English learning. In the situational classroom teaching, and we also focused on the new curricular standards, and we innovated the use of textbooks, implement the concept of the activity-based approach to English learning in designing teaching activities, and this has made beneficial explorations at the practical level. And these are my references of my trial teaching, and that is all about my lesson study of improving high school English reading instruction through situational teaching. And that's all. Thank you.